This video is all about the Amparo prosthetic system. Recently, a training session was arranged by Orthomena Dubai in collaboration with Amparo. It was an extensive hands-on training session attended by numerous participants from all over the UAE. Before moving on to the training demonstration, let's quickly brief you about the Amparo prosthetic system. Amparo socket technologies are designed for efficiency in all areas, particularly in terms of time. The Amparo system does not use plaster, and the sockets can be immediately reshaped and remolded. This means that a finished, high-quality functioning prosthesis can be assembled with unrivaled proficiency. The process usually takes 1 to 2 hours at most. Use your usual technique and expertise, and save time and material. The Amparo system includes a comprehensive range of components. All these elements were explained in detail to the participants before the hands-on session. For more detailed information, you can also visit the official website. Without further ado, let's move on to the hands-on training.
But this has also been a problem area for him.
Yeah, something like this.
Yeah, it probably had a bursa or some kind of a fluid sac that was in there previously. Again, another beautiful part of the system, if someone does have that. Clinically, if you wanted to do a custom silicone pad inside the liner, custom liner, all of that you can do. We're obviously going to stick with his system that he knows and does well in. So, we talked about the blue silicone pads. This is what they look like. You've got a larger pad for the distal tibia. You've got these smaller pads for the fibular head. And you've also got these shaped pads if you wanted to create extra space across the distal tibia, or if you have a fibula head that tracks, that moves as you flex and extend your knee, then you can create that track in here. So at 4 centimeters, we take our measurement. Actually, it's over the liner, okay? So he measures 33, that's perfect limb shape for this. So 18 to 40 is what we're looking at. Okay. Right? So our cone is more of like a mushroom top like this. So just be aware, you can use either or. This just slides in nicely and fits better. Again, so the next step is in 3 steps. The first step is just to put down our plastic, and we want to create minimal wrinkles. Nope, but I am being firm. The biggest mistake I see is that someone tries to pull this far and then wrap it around, and then you get more wrinkles. So I just want to be nice and even. You're gonna get some wrinkles, that's not an issue. If you want to get rid of them, they're really cosmetic. The patient does not feel them. But if you want to get rid of them, then at the end, you can heat the inside carefully and just smooth them up. I would be very careful though, because if you heat it too much on the inside, then you lose your shape. So I rarely get rid of any wrinkles. So, at this stage, this is where I like to draw on any bony prominences, like you typically would with plaster. Bend a little. Relax, yep. I like to draw my patella because I don't want to add pressure over it. So that's usually one that I do like to do. Quite a triangular shaped patella right there. And then I like to start my PTB right there. He did mention his fib head, and it is quite prominent. So I am going to mark it. I know it's already padded, but I'm going to make sure that when I do my wraps, I avoid that area. And then right down here, I know that we've got our distal tibia, right? Again, we haven't met, so I don't know, how he likes to wear his socket. Do you wear socks? In the socket?
Under this one or
On top, on top. Do you like to wear socks?
no problem.
No? So sometimes patients, if we know they're going to change volume, we might want to cast them or create a 3-ply sock fit. That's totally up to you.
انت بالعاده بتلبس فوقها جرابه فوق السيليكون بتلبس فوق السيليكون جرابه
لا لا
ابدا هيك بس على السيليكون
هي السيليكون بس
اوكي اونلي سيليكون
Only silicone, okay. What you can always do if you expect to do, let's say, a 3% reduction, and you find that then they're still wearing a sock, you can always put it back in the oven and then do a 4% reduction, and then you're going to create your sock fit that you want. Once you do the system a few times, and especially if you know your patient, you're gonna know what kind of reduction to do. So here I'm just taking my measurements. Nothing that we're not used to. And then, because my math isn't that good, I have an app where I can do my reduction calculations. So I'm going to aim for 4%. If I go a little bit under, I'm fine with that. So now I'm ready to start my next step. Are we doing?
740
7:40. So we still, after all this, you see I'm not stressing. I've got 7 minutes and 40 seconds, plus I've got another 6 minutes. So I can easily do the present, do the demonstration and still achieve a fit. I will start backwards because I'm going to flip it across the front. So I attach the plastic to the back of the leg, and now from the sides, you'll be able to see as I pull it, I can manipulate the tissue some. He's got pretty firm distal tissue. We're not going to need to do too much. So I'm going to bring it slightly forward, wrap across the top, place my finger over it, and then start to do my 45 degree. Notice I'm pulling and loading. I'm not just leaving it. Now the way I like to do it is actually bring it across here, and now it's locked in. Now I start to use my technique where I put my hand down, I pull the plastic, I load the tissue, hold my hand down, pull the plastic, load the tissue, pull the plastic, load the tissue. I started loading distally. I'm going to start working up now. I'm not going to load very much in the bottom, but I'm going to keep doing my technique. Up, across, change my hand, up, across, change my hand, up, across, change my hand. Avoid the fibular head. Across, change my hand. As I'm doing this, you can start to see how I'm loading the tissue. You see how it's firmer here than it is here? And if you can even touch here versus here, you can tell. Touch here, and then here. And that's only one wrap. That's only one wrap. Exactly. So, again, I'm just gonna when I get over the patella, one trick I like to do is instead of pulling, I'm just gonna lay it. Because I'm not gonna load his patella. Pull down. No. So this started to slip down, so I'm not gonna trust that measurement too much. Yeah. So I think our liner shifted a little bit, so that moved down. So I'm not going to trust this anymore. I can see where his patella is though. So no issues. There we go. Okay. So unfortunately, during that, everything shifted down a little bit. Our PTB is a little bit lower, but still pretty close. I feel confident just in my hands knowing how much tightness I need to create, so I'm not going to take it all off. In this case, if you did that, you could always go back and take it off and redo it. But for the sake of the demo, I want to keep moving. Okay. So, but just to show you, I think we'll still be quite close. So I started off at 360, and after doing those wraps, I'm now at 348. Okay? My goal is 345. So I started at 347 here. My goal is 333, and currently I have 336. So I'm quite close. I started at 340. My goal is 340. My goal is 326, and I'm at 326. I started at 333. My goal is 319, and I'm at about 314. So I compressed a little bit more here than I had planned, but still very, very little more. Next one is 327. My goal is 313, and I'm at about 310. So distally, I've got the compression that I want, and the next step is I'm going to feel just to make sure that the compression is even. Right down here, I think I'm going to do one more wrap here, get it a little bit snugger through here, just because I think he can take a little more compression, and then I know that I can tighten up a little bit more up top. So these are all, again, clinically, I'm thinking like a prosthetist. I'm not thinking like someone making something quick and they don't understand the process. I'm designing the leg around him. If someone could help me with translation about how does it feel? Does it feel?
شوي ضيقة يعني.
It's a little bit tight. Okay.
يعني بس شادة.
طريقة مزعجة ولا كيف؟
يعني لا هي مزعجة يعني little comfort and شوي AC.
It's a little tight and a little hot.
Okay, yeah. So
Feeling is holding him.
يعني
Yes.
it's okay.
it's not something that someone's used to feeling. They're used to just feeling soft and not contained, and then we add compression. But we know we need to reduce the shape, otherwise they're going to bottom out in the distal tibia. So at this stage, if he was having any pain or any areas were too tight, we ran into that the other day when we had someone in training was wrapping Ahmed, and we wrapped a little too tight over that area where he had the open wound. So he was able to give that feedback right away. So again, I know I'm going to wrap a little bit at the bottom. I'm going to concentrate a little bit more up top. Ah, perfect. It's perfect timing. Okay, great. So stay like this. And then we can do this. Got that done a few minutes ago. The gloves, yes. Here. Okay, so now the oven can get a little warm. I do a lot of these presentations, so I'm trying to be better about protecting my hands. So we pull that off, and now you can see the material has completely changed. you can see how soft that is, right? Pretty cool. The bottom, since the heat starts in the bottom is always going to heat the quickest, and the top is going to heat the slowest. So that's the part you want to check. Here, the way we check that is you want to put pressure, and you want to see it indent, and you want to see as little of this kind of mushroom shape as we can achieve. I see that the top is still a little hard. That's why it's going like the mushroom shape. I want it to droop a little bit more. I recommend putting the heat back on for another 2 minutes, 3 minutes, rather than heating it with the gun. Because if you heat it with the gun, that metal can get hot and it can just cosmetically not look as nice where it starts to pull away a little bit. So, what I'm going to do is set the timer for another 2 minutes.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Make sure that I've compressed the areas that I want to, that the pressure feels even. I don't want all the pressure down here and then soft up here. I don't want to see many big wrinkles because that means that I got tight in one area and soft, and tight and soft. I want it to be smooth. So I quite like the way that it looks. I can see his limb shape, I can see his curved limb shape. We've loaded it, so now it looks less cylindrical and more triangular and with areas loaded and areas relieved. What I will say is, because of his shape, what's really important is once I take the material and put it on him, I'm going to have to do a slit over his patella. If I don't do the slit over the patella, the material is going to pull in above and we're not going to get it off. Patella's actually more there. Okay. The final step of preparing the limb is going to be taking this nylon sock, it's like a hose basically, and that allows for our suction to translate all the way up the leg once we connect it. I think about 70% of the times I cut this too short, so I'm going to leave a little bit longer. And then we want to wet this so that we get a good consistent suction. So now from the top I can see that there's more, it's not as much this, it's more this. And then with his limb shape too, if his limb was very narrow, closer to 18, I would probably heat it a little bit more just to get it even tighter. I know with him, we're actually going to make it wider than it currently is, so we're good. What I'm going to ask the amazing Priscilla to do next is to set a timer. We're going to go 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Since this is a wick, you don't want this wick to be all the way against the skin because then all the air would come in and you'd lose your suction. So you do want to close off the top. You can do this with like electrical tape. I've seen it being done under the liner. Some people don't tie it off at all. I just don't want it to slide down and then go into my trim lines. And this would be the kind of patient, we see patients where sometimes we might think that someone is good in a certain suspension system, but maybe the sleeve is really hard for him to roll on. If we do determine that, and he rolls the sleeve so he can do it obviously, but maybe we want to switch him into pin system, so we can do that directly with this.
شو هاي ايدك اليمين؟ شو هاي ايدك اليمين تسلم؟
ها؟
شو هاي ايدك اليمين؟
هي من
نفس الإصابة
نفس الإصابة، هي ما بتسكر. بدها عمليات بعدين في شرايين مقطع جوا وفي بس.
I'm going to start putting on my suction adapter. And it just screws on to any two holes that are across from each other. There we go. And to start off the process, I'll use my gloves. Pretty soon after I put it on him, I'm going to take my gloves off because the material is still warm, but nice to, I like to feel the material rather than have the gloves on. Another thing that's really important, I checked this before, but you just want to be sure at this stage that your suction is working, everything is ready, because once you start the process, it happens pretty quick. And you don't want to be rushing to fix your pump, to plug it in once you have the system. All right, so now I pull my system off, and I can start stretching it. As I stretch it, you can see that I'm manipulating it from all sides, back and forth, getting to where I work the distal end. And the distal end is the most important part that I want to be sure that is big enough to fit his limb. The first point of contact, once I put it on him, I want to be here and not anywhere up high.
How much force are you putting?
At this, quite a bit. If you have to put a lot, it's probably too cold and you want to put it back in the oven. But then when you put it back in the oven, let it sit again. Don't skip on that step. So now, first thing, I'm going to look at the length. The length that I have is actually quite good. If he were shorter, I would cut a piece. So as soon as I stop stretching it, it wants to go back. So I just stretch it out again. I'm going to put, in this system, I'm going to put my long line on the inside. That's just cosmetically. Close. First thing I'm going to do is a little slit for the patella. And then stretch it a little bit more. Okay. And now I'm going to start, not very hard, but I'm going to start manipulating the material to sit on top of his limb.
Very good.
You okay?
No, okay.
It's a massage.
Massage.
No.
Free massage.
Free massage.
It's still a little bit hot. I know if it's too hot and I put this on, it can create some wrinkles sometimes. That's why I let it sit for a little bit. And now when I put this layer on, I'm just gonna slightly wrap, not very hard, because I don't want to create any wrinkles. Okay. So now before I put my suction on, I want to be sure that my alignment is good. Because once I pull the suction, then it's going to lock in the alignment. So.
Can you explain it's a pin, what you have to do that the pin is inside?
What?
When it's a pin, that the pin is inside.
Oh, yeah. So another really cool part of this solution is if he were a pin system, we can actually, on the liner, we can have the pin, and the pin sits inside of this tube. So once we want to manipulate it, once we're ready to pull our suction, as I manipulate the distal end, I'm deciding where the pin sits. So it's quite a nice little addition to have. You could do it without the pin, on the system, but it is quite nice to have to take advantage of.
How much pressure should be?
It's basically just turn it on and make sure there's suction. We don't want to have a certain pressure be too high. All we're doing is just creating suction through here so that it sits and locks everything in. We're not using the suction to reduce the limb shape. Yeah. So really minimal pressure is what we're aiming for. So now it's still pretty warm. Yeah, you can touch. So my hands are on here. Feel free to touch. So it's still pretty manipulated. So it's starting to set off a little bit. So I can start to create my triangular shape if I want to. I can add pressure on the ML if I wanted to. I could create a PTB. Could you ask him if that feels like it's below his patella?
تحت التلين ضاغط تحت الضاغصة
ها؟
ضغط أصابعه تحت الضاغصة تحت
ايه
Or am I pushing on his bone?
لا ما حاسس انه عم يضغط يعني
ضغط خفيف
ليه
ضغط خفيف.
Like below?
نعم.
So you can see now that it's starting to set off, I have my little imprints in there. You can always leave that. You can add more pressure. You can, if you create too much pressure, you can heat it out afterwards and push it. Whatever you want to do clinically. I'm going to take a little bit of that out.
How long time you have to work on it?
Really, you just want it to be fully set off. So it's right down here, it's set off. Up here is always the slowest. So I can feel right here, it's still a little bit warm. If you wanted to heat, use ice spray or a cold rag, it goes very quick, yeah. But it's actually setting off nicely.
I think there's no need of using ice or something.
It's already, I mean, we're probably 1 minute away from it being fully set off. Right here, it's still soft. Yep, so a little bit soft, so I'm still gonna allow it to settle. If you do, so over time, you know how we get scratches in sockets. This was I don't know what that was. If you do get a little bit of a scuffing in the socket, if you use Vaseline and a heat gun, it kind of smooths it out again. So, little pro tip. So at this stage, the suction isn't creating any kind of pressure at this stage. I'm just gonna make sure it's not soft at the top. In the back, I've got a little bit of a soft spot I can feel right there, so I'm just gonna let that. This is still warm, but it's not hot at all. And it's not soft, which is the most important. Okay? So now, take this off. Our suction adapter, we don't need anymore. Take that off. You're okay, you're okay. There we go. There we go. All right. Very nice. I always like to look just to make sure my shape resembles what I created. I can see the undercut here. I can see the undercut here. I can see that I'm quite happy with how this turned out. There's minimal wrinkling on the inside. Again, if I wanted to heat that and smooth it out, I can. But the socket is still warm, but we can pass it around real quick. In the meantime, we can start to take all of our plastic off, and don't forget this, we have the pads, so we want to take those out. I've lost so many pads because I forget. So it's funny, there was a clinician I worked with which their feedback was at one point they were saying, oh, so you waste so much plastic.
Hello. Salam.
There's so much plastic wastage compared to a check socket or 2 check sockets. This is very little. This is nothing. So it's worth it.
Okay, okay, no problem. Can you call me for 1 hour? Okay.
Let's have a look.
سخنة رجلك سخنة.
لا لا مو فيه. لا هي كان فيها شوية حماوة بس مش هلا عادية.
Usually,
الحرارة بيسمعك أو
لا لا.
yeah, patients don't usually feel the heat. They might feel that it gets a little warm. They usually appreciate the massage, but there's never been any case where we've had it heat up to where the patient was uncomfortable. So at this stage, you know, however you want to do your trim lines, you can. There's no set recommendation. If you typically do a W, if you go straight across, whatever you typically do. What I do recommend though is initially starting off high, so you can always take down. If you cut too low, there's ways of cheating the material to where you can stretch it a little bit if you reshape it, but just avoid those situations. The tone works really easy to remove your marks, so that's no problem.
easy. I'm trying it.
Oh, let me show you this. So it's a little cold, so it might be some harder to cut. But you can use these shears that come with the kit to cut your material. I like to brace myself against the thigh, and then from here, you see you can cut that material. So this can take a little bit of time. Again, the warmer it is, the easier it is. But we're going to cheat and use the jigsaw. Oh yeah. I think that deserves a round of applause. I think that was quite impressive.
Yeah, here we eat and work together.
هلا وجعتني. نرجع من أول.
For Muhammad here, we're going to do a suction system, right, with the sleeve. And this is our suction valve. When we made the socket, remember we chose to put our fabric where the lines are on either side. The reason we did that is because we also have two holes on either side. So now we're going to choose where we want our button to be, our suction valve. We'll ask him if he prefers the button to be on the inside or the outside. You know, in his case, since he does wear a sleeve suspension, as soon as he pulls the sleeve down, he's going to be able to take it off. But if they didn't wear a sleeve, that would be a huge consideration. All I do is thread this suction valve in. I can put a little bit of Loctite on there because it's metal on metal. And that's all I do. Now, the next step is you can see in the bottom we have two holes, and then the middle hole would be for the pin. It comes with this rubber piece with a little nipple hanging out there. If we have our valve on this side, we want the nipple to be on the other side, so we block off this air channel. When we do that, you can see that there's still a space here for the air to travel into the socket, into that hole, and then to the left and out of our valve, but it can't go back in. So to hold it in place, we then have this plate that goes over the top, and then we take our female, our male adapter and put it on there like you typically would. So if we're going to do suction. If this were pin lock, we wouldn't have this screwed in, of course. I'm not going to take it out because it takes a while. But we would have our pin system, and we would place our pin over the top, and then our female or male, and same idea. So to turn it from suction to pin, less than 5 minutes. So in this case, remember, the nipple goes onto here to close off the hole. And then we've got a little filter thing. Just sits right there. Perfect. Okay, over the top. So now we're ready to assemble the rest of the leg. My trim lines, we just cut them approximately. I didn't smooth them. It takes a little bit of time to smooth them, so I want to put it on him first before I clean it all up. Before we drop it off, we can just get an idea of how our tension values are. It's going to be better with the foot and standing. But you can see that our tension values are quite close. Now at this stage, I can start to look at my trim lines. If they are where I want them to be, they look quite close. And then bend your knee. Good. I'm probably going to be able to trim this down a little bit. All in all, I'm getting some tension values, so I like that. If I want to get a little more tension, I can always heat and add more in the popliteal, anything like that. Talking and presentation, I think we're probably a total of 30, 40 minutes right now from when we started. And now we're just setting it up, and then we're going to do alignments. And in theory, then the patient should be able to walk and lead the.
And I.
Our prosthesis, I'd say 80% there. You can see the trim lines. They're still a little bit rough. I want to leave them for now. I just want to start trying and see where we're at, because we might have to lower them a little bit more. So I like to keep it 2. We're going to try without the liner to start off with, just to see where we're at. Swing it like that.
قولي حاسس بايه وانا بقول
من هون هيك لك
But maybe because of the rough skin or the blister that he has,
Yeah.
he has a little corn on the side.
Because what happened, I have a problem. So I arranged trainings and everything. This is just out of my body, it's just from my body. So that is, yeah, sure.
So we have quite a bit of extra material at the top. We can get rid of all of that. And then if we wanted to, if there was still too much space, we can always heat that and add more. In his case, we may... Let's get our heights right. Make sure our height is about right.
حاسس ان انت عالي في ناحيه عن الثانيه.
عايز الطرف اعلى منه، عايز الطرف عالي.
هلا مش عارف كيف بدي وزن.
He's not sure?
ما انا متاكد كثير. نت شوي.
It looks like we're close. We may be a little bit low on this side. But what does he feel?
ما بعرف بس مش عارف ما بعرف هو
كانت
A little higher. So there's a lesson of not to trust where your hands are at, because it looks like his hips are a little bit lower on that side, but he feels tall. So we'll leave it where we're at for now. I'm going to lower that just because that's going to be a little too much extra material. As he's standing in it a little bit longer, does it still feel tight down here?
بتقف اكتر حاسس انها
يعني لا مش مثل هذيك يمكن هذيك اللي عودت عليها بس هذه هي شويه يعني دقيقه بس بركي على الاستعمال بيمشي حالها.
وير فين بتبقى حاسس انها ضيقه؟ So
Tight?
from the sides you feel it.
Okay. What I'd like to do is let's trim this down some more, and then if it still feels too tight, we can always heat that and open it up. So not a problem. But I want to try him walking first because he might settle into it. And no, you'd heat it on here and then push it from out here. Then you can push as much as you want. You don't want to put it on him and then heat it and hope that it goes where it wants to. You want to be in a little more control. I can feel that I've got quite an aggressive triangular shape, so we can absolutely get rid of that in a second.
Be careful with the shoes.
بيقول لك عشان مفيش جزمه عشان ما يسقطش.
لا ما راح.
Okay. So we're still going to make it.
You know, it's 70% silicone, 30% gel. So it's like, and it's half the price of the, yeah, half the price. Made in China.
Material makes a difference.
Known as made in Germany.
The material makes a difference on the edge with the blisters.
Yeah. This is silicone.
This one gonna be as rough.
Okay. No, we need to start at this.
So let's start.
Feel how soft this is on the edge.
No, but I thought with the vacuum sometimes it wouldn't stop.
No, the edge is the problem as well. You got to cut it like this because it creates a shear force.
For the sleeve, not for the...
Let's get all the way in. I don't think you're all the way down.
Should he stand better?
Yeah, he will.
وقف أحسن عشان رجلك كلها تخش جوه.
Okay, so we want to, at this stage, really, we've made the socket, we've created what we think is a good fit, but we can still manipulate it. So at the check socket, we can heat, we can open, we can create the kind of environment that he wants to be in. So we do have a suction system. You can start to see how the trim lines are pulling in. So we're starting to get suction. And now we'll see just how he feels standing up. So
From the bottom, maybe he's bottoming out.
I think exactly that. It looked like it was a little bit loose. We could get a little bit of a time. In his case, I would have probably done, if we were to start fresh as a patient, done maybe a thicker liner just to protect it in case he changes volume.
Everything is fine except the bottom.
Okay. The bottom of the confidence sockets for the suction system, there is actually a silicone pad built into it. So this system doesn't have it, the confidence does. I can feel the material start to change a little bit, and then I go back and forth to create a glassy, smooth finish. Let me check, nice and smooth, and then you can feel it. We say that it's fast, and we say that it's more efficient, all of those things. End of the day, you're doing a casting, modifications, check socket fitting, modifications, check socket fitting, and delivery. So leaving yourself time, especially that first patient, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, I recommend, so that you can evaluate those problems.
Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.